President Kamala Harris sat down for an interview with the oh-so-friendly journalists at MSNBC. To be fair, the reporter, Stephanie Ruhle, did call out voters' lack of confidence in Harris's economic plans. Let's watch.
Polling shows that most likely voters still think Donald Trump is better to handle the economy. Why do you think that is?
Well, here's what I know in terms of the facts. Donald Trump left us with the worst economy since the Great Depression when you look at, for example, the employment numbers. Top economists in our country, from Nobel laureates to people at Moody's and Goldman Sachs, have compared my plan with his and said my plan would grow the economy, his would shrink the economy.
Ruhle also asked Harris whether she actually worked at McDonald's. Let's watch.
Okay,
there's no such thing as a little job.
Okay, fair. Because your opponent almost every day seems to be talking about this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working at a McDonald's? Yes or no? That's it.
I have.
Okay, now the other job. But
it was not a small job. Like, I did the fries. I mean,
And after the interview, Ruhle called out Harris on her non-answer to the question. Let's watch.
But how do you find that line to make sure corporations are paying their fair share, but they're not leaving our country?
Well, listen, I work with a lot of CEOs. I have spent a lot of time with CEOs, and I'm going to tell you that the business leaders who are actually part of the engine of America's economy agree that people should pay their fair share. They also agree that when we look at a plan such as mine that is about investing in the middle class, investing in new industries, investing in bringing down costs, invest in entrepreneurs like small businesses, that the overall economy is stronger and everyone benefits.
Talk about that answer.
I do, but here's what's a little tricky. She doesn't answer the question around if the GOP is controlling the Senate, if she can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from, to expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do? And she says, we just have to do it. And that's great, and that's a campaign promise. But the issue is, if it means we're just going to borrow again, then what we're doing is we're just never addressing the deficit.
Now take a listen to CNN's political commentator Scott Jennings reacting to Harris's MSNBC interview.
Yeah, I'm still confused about which billionaire rich people are good and which are bad. Trump is, I guess, bad. The people who support Trump are bad. The billionaires that she goes around with, I guess, are good. I think it's a very muddled thing, and I still don't understand. I think today was a miss for Harris. I mean, Joe Biden went on The View today and said he delegated all sorts of authority to her on domestic policy. We know that the Biden administration is not popular on domestic and economic policy. She gave a speech today saying we've got to move past the policies that people think have failed. Well, people think the last 4 years are a failure. And from what I can tell from this interview tonight, which was really a home game, I mean, going on with this particular interviewer, it was like effectively interviewing with her campaign's press secretary. She had nothing new to say on the economy beyond this ridiculous pablum. You want to talk about aspirations and dreams? They're crushed in this country because of inflation, and these kinds of interviews and the day that she had today are not going to solve it.
Yeah, to Scott's point, Stephanie Ruhle was on Bill Maher, I think, this past weekend, saying that, Kamala Harris isn't Donald Trump, so why would we, kind of implying why would we care that much if her answers to questions are good when the alternative is so bad, which is not even though many mainstream journalists obviously have that view, it's not good to say it out loud. It probably affects how people see your news judgment and see the job you're doing of grilling Kamala. I was happy to see her admit that, yes, Kamala did not really answer the question of how she's going to pay for these plans if you're going to have Republican control of the Senate and you're not going to be able to raise taxes. Also, Scott's point about which billionaires are good and bad was very much on display at the Democratic National Convention when there was a broad condemnation of billionaires, followed by a speech by Bernie Sanders doing that, and then followed by with the governor of Illinois, who is himself a very wealthy individual, and bragged about it and said it was a good thing. So there is some incoherence there.
Well, firstly, in brief defense of Stephanie Ruhle, she did at least press to some extent on the economic economics part of the question. What are Harris's plans? I didn't think Harris's answers were particularly fantastic, but at least there was a concentration on that. And I know Stephanie Rule's background is in financial journalism. I happened to turn on at the moment of the McDonald's excerpt that we just played and sort of recoiled in horror, cringing at it, because I just thought that was not great.
It made me hungry.
Well, that's
how it affected me.
Maybe so. I was just like, oh, I hate these interviews where it's all like buddy type stuff, wherever they come from. I actually think there's a broader question about how political journalism, particularly in TV, has become so aligned with particular political partisan positions, and so that often deprives the public of politicians having to go on to more adversarial interviews. You can just choose a more friendly venue, which obviously Trump does all the time with Fox News. Kamala Harris did here with MSNBC. On the billionaires question, I don't know. I mean, I think that there is, that the fact that someone is rich doesn't mean that they can't argue for a more redistributive tax system, or that you can't argue that, in fact, there should be a more progressive view of how government revenues are raised and used.
She talked about her economic plans. She referenced them being, popular with all sorts of financial expert groups. Of course, they have come under significant criticism from economists, both the plan to give $25,000 to first-time home buyers, a plan I think is particularly bad because we have a housing supply problem, and that's just going to raise it. Like, subsidizing demand is not going to increase the number of available homes.
I don't like to interrupt you too, but she did say 3 million. She wants 3 million new homes built within her first term.
Well, we all want 3 million new homes built.
But that would address the supply problem, though, to some extent.
Yeah, but she can't just will that into existence. You have to do the rezoning, really, is the thing that has to happen, and that's at the statewide basis. And then additionally, the kind of price gouging plan, that got panned by economists too, because these are, trying to put Band-Aids on fundamental things that have gone wrong in the economy, and trying to centralize it and micromanage it does not have a good track record. Now, I don't know that she's going to be able to do any of these things, again, because Republicans are going to control at least one and possibly two branches of government. And that's always kind of I won't say it's an unfair question, but I always feel for, I don't feel for politicians, but when they're in the position of, well, that's your plan, but how are you going to do it when it's so dysfunctional? Like, what's she supposed to say? Well, that's why you should vote for more of my people, because so we can do the plan I'm proposing.
Right, exactly. And I mean, this gets back to what we were talking about yesterday about the filibuster, and you need a super majority now for almost everything. I think that the issue with the economic argument in this election is interesting, because Trump, of course, wants to just sort of blast tariffs on everything.
That would be bad. I'm also against that, and as our economists, now there's been tremendous continuity in the tariff policy. Biden has kept many tariffs in places and wants, both parties want different, some of the same overlapping tariffs, some different tariffs, but a lot of tariffs. American consumers don't want tariffs because it raises the price of everything.
Yes, and also Trump regards them as a panacea for almost everything, including that famously incoherent answer he gave at the New York Economic Club, where he was asked about childcare, and his argument appeared to be, well, we'll have lots of money from tariffs and then it won't matter so much, which I just couldn't make head nor tail off. So there is, I think, a broader issue in this election campaign about politicians buying votes. Now, that criticism is one that I'm sometimes sceptical of, because it is politicians' job to appeal to voters and to help, working people and all of that. But there are a lot of proposals being made that are just like, yeah, we'll do this. We'll make overtime tax exempt, for example. We'll make tips tax exempt. We'll have tariffs. We'll somehow, in Harris's case, eliminate price gouging. Still isn't quite clear to me how she is going to do that. And I think there are a lot of things being offered, being kind of dangled to get voters on the hook, and I'm not sure how they're going to be enacted.
Yeah, I like the idea of having fewer taxes, lower taxes. So, not taxing tipped wages is on some level an appealing idea to me, but because I know from very basic economics that would just encourage more and more labor to be classified as tipped in order to avoid the taxes. And I don't know, that would just, I think, incentivize everyone to be paid in such a way, which I don't know, may not be necessarily bad, but I don't think what they're designing is we want to convert our economy entirely into a tipping situation. That's not what they're actually wanting to do. And it doesn't make sense to me to not tax So people who just happen to receive their tips that way, let's just tax everybody less. That's what I would do. Or not at all. Not at all even.
Well, I mean, the point about tipping...
Zero taxes.
Yeah, we can't have a flat tax, Robby. How would we pay for all the important government programs that help alleviate poverty and all of that?
So important.
The issue about tipping, though, just briefly, is there is also just the question of setting aside the fact that it gives an incentive for lots more labour to be converted to tips. Yeah. There's also the question, if you're trying to help lower income people, that's only a small number of people who do primarily get their income from tips. So then, like, should people who are on minimum wage stacking the shelves in the grocery store, it's just tough luck to them because it's not tipped income. That seems not fair on a basic level.
I think we should convert to a tipping payment system here at the Hill at Nexstar. I'm definitely going to be in favor of this if this is how
tip your host.
Tip your host. More Rising right after this.